The warning buoy. The maintenance vessel, Stellar Vigil, drifted silently through the darkness of space, its hull gleaming under the distant light of Sol. Chief Engineer Zixna adjusted his breathing apparatus as he studied the holographic display before him, his four eyes blinking in rapid succession as he processed the data. "This makes no sense," he chittered, mandibles clicking with agitation. "That's the 18th warning buoy that's gone dark this cycle. They're supposed to last for millennia." Captain Veltura floated closer, her bioluminescent patches pulsing with concern. As a Meridian, she had evolved in the deep oceans of her homeworld, and even after centuries of space travel, her species maintained their natural glow. "Show me the pattern again," she commanded. The hologram expanded, revealing the solar system they were approaching. Red dots indicated the disabled buoys, forming an almost perfect circle around the third planet, Earth. Even seeing the name in the star charts made Veltura's chromatophores ripple with unease. "The buoys closer to the inner system are still functional," Zixna noted, pulling up additional data. "It's just the outer warning network that's been compromised. Someone's been methodically disabling them." "Impossible," Veltura replied, but her voice wavered. "No ship could approach this system without triggering multiple alerts. The Galactic Council's quarantine protocols." A sharp alarm cut through her words, causing both aliens to freeze. The Stellar Vigil sensors had detected something massive approaching from the direction of Earth. Something that shouldn't exist. "Contact." The sensor operator, a young Arvanian named Krell, shouted. "Unknown vessel, bearing 03 Mark 7. It's huge." The hologram shifted, showing a massive ship emerging from behind one of the gas giants. Its design was unlike anything in the Galactic Council's database. Sharp angles and geometric patterns covered its hull, with no consideration for the flowing, organic aesthetics preferred by most spacefaring races. It was a predator's design, built for function over form. "By the void," Zixna whispered. "It's human." The word hung in the air like a death sentence. For centuries, the Galactic Council had maintained a strict quarantine around Earth. The warning buoys were more than just markers. They were part of an elaborate early warning system designed to alert the galaxy if humanity ever developed deep space capabilities. They were too late. The human vessel's size dwarfed their maintenance ship. Patterns of light pulsed along its hull, in what seemed like a deliberate sequence. Veltura realized with growing horror that they were being scanned. "Captain," Krull called out, his voice trembling. "They're hailing us." Veltura felt her crew's eyes on her. Everything they knew about humans came from classified historical records and frightened whispers. The species that had forced the Council to establish its first and only system-wide quarantine. The Deathworlders who had demonstrated such terrifying potential that the galaxy's most powerful civilizations had agreed to contain them. "Open the channel," she ordered, straightening her posture. Whatever happened next would become part of history. The hologram flickered, and Veltura found herself face to face with a human. The creature's appearance was deceptively simple: bilateral symmetry, 2 eyes, no obvious defensive adaptations. But she knew better. Everything about humans was deceptive. "Greetings, maintenance vessel," the human said, speaking perfect standard galactic. "I'm Captain Sarah Chen of the Earth exploration vessel Prometheus. I believe we need to talk about those warning buoys you've been maintaining." Veltura's chromatophores flashed with surprise. The human's tone was friendly, professional, even. There was no sign of the savage aggression their species was supposedly known for. I am Captain Veltura of the Stellar Vigil," she responded cautiously. "You've been disabling the warning network." "Correcting it." "Actually," Captain Chen replied with what appeared to be a facial expression of amusement. "Your buoys were broadcasting some rather unfortunate misinformation about Earth. We've been updating them with more current data." Zixna stepped forward, his technical curiosity temporarily overwhelming his fear. "Impossible. The encryption protocols were impressive," Chen interrupted, For technology that's several centuries old, we've made some improvements. Would you like to see? Before anyone could respond, the stellar vigil systems came alive with new information. The holographic display filled with technical specifications, scientific data, and cultural information about Earth and humanity. It was overwhelming in its scope and complexity. "This is just a basic information package," Chen explained. "We've been trying to correct the record for a while now, but your automated maintenance systems kept resetting the buoys. We figured a face-to-face meeting might be more productive." Veltura studied the data flowing across her screens. Everything she thought she knew about humans was being challenged. The quarantine protocols, the warnings, the fears, they were based on observations from centuries ago, when humanity was still in its technological infancy. "Your species," she said slowly, "has advanced considerably. That tends to happen when you leave a civilization alone for a few hundred years." Shen replied with another facial expression, something the translator identified as a smile. "We've been watching the galaxy, learning, preparing. We think it's time for a proper introduction." Zixna was already diving deep into the technical data. "Captain," he chittered excitedly, "their propulsion systems, their energy management, their computational capabilities, they're beyond anything in Council space." "We had to be creative," Chen explained. "Being quarantined meant we couldn't rely on standard galactic technology. We had to find our own solutions." Veltura felt a profound shift in her understanding. The quarantine hadn't contained humanity. It had forced them to develop independently, to innovate without the limitations of established galactic technological doctrine. The Council's greatest fear had become a self-fulfilling prophecy. "The Council will need to be informed," she said finally. "That's why we're here," Chen agreed. "Earth is ready to join the galactic community. But this time, we're not asking for permission. We're offering our help." As if to emphasize her words, long-range sensors detected more human ships emerging from hiding places throughout the solar system. The Prometheus wasn't alone. It was just the first to reveal itself. Veltura realized she was witnessing a pivotal moment in galactic history. The quarantine zone that had been meant to contain humanity had instead created something unprecedented. A civilization that had developed in complete isolation from galactic standards, free to explore technological and social paths that no other species had considered. The warning buoys had failed, but not due to malfunction. They had failed because their very purpose, to warn the galaxy about humanity, had become obsolete. The humans weren't a threat to be contained. They were a force that had outgrown their cage. As Veltura prepared to make her report to the Council, she couldn't help but wonder. Had they feared humanity because of what they might become, or because they had seen in humans a reflection of their own potential, unfettered by the constraints of tradition and convention? The answer, she suspected, would reshape the galaxy forever. The Archive Keeper, Senior Archivist Trelmox, hurried through the crystalline corridors of the Galactic Council's historical repository, his auxiliary legs clicking rapidly against the polished floor. Behind him, towering shelves of data crystals stretched into the darkness, each containing millennia of carefully preserved records. But today, he wasn't interested in the ancient histories that had defined his career. His focus was on a much more recent, and far more disturbing, report. The maintenance vessel Stellar Vigil had encountered humans in deep space. The quarantine had failed. Trelmox's access card trembled in his primary manipulator as he approached the restricted archives. As one of only 12 beings with clearance to access the complete Earth files, he knew what the Council didn't want the galaxy to know. He had spent decades studying the classified records, piecing together the real reason Earth had been isolated. The security scanner hummed, reading his biological signature. The massive doors parted, revealing a small, heavily shielded chamber. Here, among the most closely guarded secrets of the galaxy, lay the truth about humanity's first contact. "Display historical log 7249E, he commanded. "First contact incident." The room's holographic systems activated, surrounding him with images from 3 centuries ago. He had reviewed these records countless times, but now they carried new urgency. The recording began as it always did, showing the Galactic Council's first observation post in Earth orbit. The humans hadn't detected it. Their technology had been primitive by galactic standards. The Council had followed standard procedures for studying pre-spaceflight civilizations, watching humanity's development with academic interest. Then came the error that changed everything. A junior researcher, fascinated by human biological adaptability, had decided to conduct a small experiment. Following standard protocols for studying primitive species, they had abducted a small sample of humans for examination. It was a routine procedure, performed countless times on countless worlds. But humans weren't routine. The recording shifted to interior footage of the observation post. Trellmox watched as the supposedly sedated humans suddenly awoke, their bodies having metabolized the sedatives at an unprecedented rate. What followed was chaos. The humans, despite their technological disadvantage, demonstrated extraordinary problem-solving abilities under pressure. They quickly grasped the basic principles of alien technology through observation alone. Within hours, they had not only escaped their containment, but had also managed to gain control of significant portions of the station. Pause playback. Trellmox ordered. He had always found this part fascinating. The humans hadn't simply escaped. They had adapted. Every obstacle presented to them became a learning opportunity. Every piece of advanced technology they encountered was rapidly understood and repurposed. Resume playback. Enhanced analysis mode. The scene continued with new data overlays. The humans had accessed the station's database, downloading enormous amounts of information about galactic civilization before they were finally contained. But the damage was done. They had glimpsed their place in a vast, advanced universe. And more importantly, they had learned they could compete in it. The Council's response had been swift and unprecedented. The observation post was destroyed, its very existence erased from official records. Earth was designated as a quarantine zone, surrounded by warning buoys and automated defense systems. The official explanation was that humans were too aggressive, too dangerous to join galactic society. But Trellmox knew the real reason, documented in the highest security clearance files. The Council was terrified of humanity's potential. A new alert flashed across his vision. Another report from the Stellar Vigil. The humans hadn't just developed space travel. They had surpassed current galactic technology in several key areas. They had done in 3 centuries what had taken other species millennia. Display current threat analysis, he commanded. The holographic display shifted, showing a comparison between predicted human development and actual achievements. The divergence was staggering. The Council's models had assumed that isolation would slow human advancement. Instead, it had accelerated it. Trellmox felt his respiratory chambers constrict as he realized the full implications. The quarantine hadn't just failed, it had backfired spectacularly. By forcing humans to solve problems without access to galactic standard technology, the Council had inadvertently created a civilization of innovators who approached challenges from completely novel angles. His communication device chimed. The Council was convening an emergency session, and his expertise would be required. But what could he tell them? That their greatest mistake wasn't quarantining humanity. It was underestimating them. As he prepared his presentation, Trellmox made a decision. The Council needed to know everything, including the parts of history they had tried to forget. The humans weren't just victims of an overzealous containment policy. They were the unintended result of the Council's own actions. He gathered the relevant data crystals, each containing pieces of the true story. The Council had feared human potential, had tried to contain it, and in doing so, had forced that potential to develop in ways they couldn't have imagined. The humans were coming, not as the savages the Council had feared, but as something far more interesting, a species that had grown up in isolation, unburdened by the technological and cultural assumptions that governed the rest of galactic civilization. As he left the archive chamber, Trellmox reflected on the irony. The Council had wanted to prevent humans from influencing galactic civilization. Instead, they had created a civilization that might well revolutionize it. The time for secrets was over. The galaxy needed to prepare for a new era, one where humanity's unique perspective might offer solutions to problems that had plagued galactic civilization for millennia. The question was, would the Council accept this reality, or would they make the same mistake twice? The brave fool. Merchant Captain Vexstar stood at the helm of his trading vessel Fortune's Gambit, watching as the quarantine warning buoys grew larger in his view screen. His crew had called him insane when he'd announced his plan. The Galactic Council had labeled him a criminal for even attempting it. His own mate had left him, taking half his fortune in the divorce. But Vexstar had seen the reports from the Stellar Vigil. Where others saw danger, he saw opportunity. Final check on our modified transponder, he called out to his skeleton crew. The only 3 beings brave, or foolish, enough to stay with him. Signal masking at maximum efficiency, replied Trin, his technical officer. Her tentacles danced across the control interface. As far as the warning system is concerned, we're just background radiation. Vexstar's inner membranes flickered with excitement. The modified transponder had cost him nearly everything he had left, but if his gamble paid off, he would be the first independent merchant to establish trade relations with humanity. Entering quarantine zone in 3 pulses, announced Krull, the navigator. The young Centaurian's spines were fully extended, a sign of either fear or anticipation. They slipped past the first line of buoys without incident. Vexstar felt his cardiac chambers flutter. Decades of smuggling experience had taught him that when things seemed too easy, they usually were. He was right. Multiple contacts. Trin shouted, emerging from everywhere. The view screen filled with ships of human design. They had been there all along, hidden by technology that made Vexstar's expensive smuggling systems look primitive by comparison. We're being hailed, Krull reported, his spines now definitely showing fear. Before Vexstar could respond, a human face appeared on their main display. The being wore what appeared to be a formal uniform, though its design was unlike anything in Council space. Merchant vessel Fortune's Gambit, the human said in perfect trade speak, "This is Commander Lai Wei of Earth Border Security. Your transponder masking is impressive, but we detected you 3 days ago. Would you like to explain why you're attempting to circumvent our security systems?" Vexstar's business instincts took over. Where others saw threat, he had always seen opportunity. "Commander Lai Wei," he said, spreading his primary arms in the universal gesture of peaceful intent, "I am but a humble merchant seeking new trading partners. Perhaps we could discuss mutually beneficial arrangements." A pause. Then, surprisingly, the human's face creased in what Vexstar's xenocultural database identified as a smile. A merchant brave enough to ignore Council warnings. Commander Lai said, "Follow our escort to Trading Station Alpha. Let's see what you have to offer." Hours later, Vexstar found himself aboard the most remarkable space station he had ever seen. Trading Station Alpha wasn't just a commerce hub. It was a testament to human engineering. The artificial gravity was smoother than any Council world. The environmental systems adapted instantly to each species' needs. Even the lighting adjusted automatically for different alien physiologies. "Impressed?" asked his guide, a human female who had introduced herself as Dr. Sarah Martinez. "This station was one of our first major construction projects after we achieved reliable FTL travel." "How?" Vexstar couldn't help asking. "The quarantine should have prevented you from accessing advanced technology." "It did," Dr. Martins replied. "So we made our own. Everything you see here was developed independently. We had to solve problems from first principles, without relying on established galactic solutions." They entered what appeared to be a massive marketplace. Vexstar's inner membranes nearly ruptured from shock. The products on display, technologies, materials, designs, were unlike anything in Council space. Some seemed to defy what he had been taught was possible. "These are just our consumer goods," Martinez explained. "Things we're willing to trade. Our more advanced developments aren't for sale. At least not yet." Vextar's trading instincts went into overdrive. Every item he saw represented a potential fortune in council space, but something bothered him. "Why show me this?" he asked. "Why not just arrest me for violating the quarantine?" Martinez's smile returned. "Because you proved something we've suspected. The council's quarantine is breaking down. More independent traders will come. We needed to know how to handle them." She paused. "And we needed someone to carry a message back." "What message?" "That Earth is open for business. On our terms. We're not the primitive savages the council warned about. We're not revenge-seeking militants either. We're simply a civilization that took a different path, and now we're ready to share what we've learned." Vextar understood. He wasn't just being offered a trading opportunity. He was being made into an ambassador of sorts. Every successful deal he made would demonstrate that humanity could be reasoned with, traded with, worked with. "Of course," Martins added, "we'll need to discuss proper protocols. Our systems are different from what you're used to. Our security requirements are non-negotiable, and any attempt to reverse engineer our technology without permission will be discouraged." The threat was subtle but clear. Humans hadn't survived in isolation by being naive. As Vextar began the process of establishing formal trading relations, he realized something profound. The Council hadn't just failed to contain humanity. They had forced them to become something unprecedented. A civilization that had advanced without the constraints of galactic conventional wisdom. His crew's fear had turned to amazement. Krell was deep in conversation with a human engineer, discussing propulsion theories that seemed to violate Council physics. Trin was examining a personal computing device that made Council technology look ancient. "You know," Martinez said, watching his reactions, "some of our historians argue that the quarantine was the best thing that could have happened to us. It forced us to think differently, to solve problems in new ways. We had to rely on ourselves." Vextar thought about the fortune he would make as humanity's first independent trading partner. But more than that, he thought about what this meant for the galaxy. The Council had tried to contain a potential problem, but instead, they had created something remarkable. A civilization of innovators who might just change everything. He had come seeking profit. He would leave with something far more valuable. The knowledge that the galaxy was about to enter a new age, led by the very species it had tried to cage. The Defense Fleet. High Counselor Nexval stared at the holographic display dominating the Council's emergency chamber, watching as another core world went dark. The Swarm, as they were now called, had appeared from the galactic rim 6 months ago. They consumed everything in their path. Ships, stations, even entire planets. Conventional weapons proved useless. Standard shields couldn't withstand their attacks. The proud galactic defense fleet, unchallenged for millennia, had been reduced to scattered remnants in a matter of weeks. "The Centauri sector has fallen," announced Admiral Kexter, his normally pristine uniform showing signs of strain. "Their bioorganic technology. It adapts to everything we throw at it. We've lost contact with 37 major colonies." The chamber erupted in panicked voices. Representatives from hundreds of species argued, pleaded, and accused. 3 centuries of peace had left them unprepared for this kind of threat. "There is one option we haven't considered," said a quiet voice. The chamber fell silent as Archivist Trelmox stepped forward. Everyone knew what he was about to suggest. Everyone had been avoiding it. "Earth," Trelmox continued. "The humans." "Impossible," shouted the Regelian ambassador. "They're quarantined for a reason." "A reason that no longer matters," Trelmox countered. "You've all seen the reports. Their technology, developed in isolation, follows different principles than ours. The Swarm adapts to our weapons because they're all based on the same fundamental galactic sciences. But humans, They've created something entirely new. High Counselor Nexval raised a hand for silence. Even if we wanted to approach them, how could we? Our last intelligence suggests they've developed far beyond our expectations. They might see us as enemies after centuries of isolation. Actually, came a new voice. We've been watching the situation with great interest. The chamber's security systems erupted in mornings as a holographic figure materialized in the center of the room. A human female in what appeared to be a military uniform. Admiral Sarah Chen, Earth Defense Force. She introduced herself. Sorry for the dramatic entrance, but we figured it was time to join the conversation. The council chamber descended into chaos. Security forces rushed in, though their weapons would be useless against a hologram. Representatives demanded explanations, their universal translators struggling to keep up with the overlapping shouts. How dare you breach council's security? The Regelian ambassador bellowed. We didn't, Chen replied calmly. We've had quantum observation capabilities in this chamber since you built it. Did you really think that quarantine was only keeping us in? Nexval raised both hands this time, restoring order through sheer force of will. Admiral Chen, he said carefully, your presence here is unexpected, but not uninvited, she countered. Archivist Trelmox was right. We've been monitoring the swarm since they first appeared. We've analyzed their technology, studied their tactics. We can help. At what price? Someone demanded. Chen's hologram smiled. The end of the quarantine. Recognition of Earth as a sovereign power, not subject to council authority, and unrestrained access to trade routes and scientific exchange. You're asking us to trust you with unrestricted access to the galaxy. The Regelian sputtered. No, Chen corrected. We're offering you the chance to trust us to save it. The hologram expanded, showing images that made even the most seasoned council members gasp. Massive ships of human design, unlike anything in known space. Weapons that seemed to bend reality itself. Defense systems that made council technology look primitive. While you were trying to contain us, Chen explained, we were preparing. We knew that someday, something would threaten the galaxy that conventional defenses couldn't handle. The swarm isn't the first such threat we've detected, just the first to actually attack. Nexval studied the images carefully. You've been protecting us all along, he realized, from the shadows. Earth sits at a strategic position in the galaxy, Chen confirmed. We've intercepted and eliminated 3 potentially civilization-ending threats in the past century alone. But this one's too big to handle quietly. Another world went dark on the main display, emphasizing her point. We don't have time for lengthy negotiations, Chen continued. The swarm will reach Earth's sector in approximately 30 days. We can stop them, but we need full cooperation from the Council. No more barriers, no more restrictions. Nexval looked around the chamber, seeing the fear in his fellow council members' eyes. Centuries of policy, of carefully maintained order, weighed against the very survival of galactic civilization. The Council will need to vote, he began. With respect, High Counselor, Chen interrupted. You don't have time. Our fleet is already mobilizing. You can either help us save the galaxy, or you can watch us do it anyway. The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. The humans weren't asking for permission. They were offering a choice between cooperation and irrelevance. How? Admiral Kexter asked, professional curiosity overcoming his shock. How did you advance so far in isolation? Because of the isolation, Chen replied. You gave us the greatest gift possible, the freedom to think differently. While the galaxy built on established principles, we had to find new ones. While you refined existing technology, we had to imagine new possibilities. Nexval straightened in his chair. 3 centuries ago, the Council had feared human potential so much they had tried to contain it. Instead, they had created exactly what the galaxy needed, a civilization unbound by conventional limitations. What do you need from us? He asked. Chen's hologram smiled again. Everything you know about the swarm. full access to your defense networks, and most importantly, trust. The galaxy is about to change, High Counselor. The question is whether the Council will help shape that change, or simply observe it. As the Council chambers erupted in urgent discussion, Nexval realized that humanity had already won, not through force or conquest, but by becoming indispensable. The quarantine was over. The age of isolation was ending. And the galaxy would never be the same. The new era. 1 year after the swarm's defeat, the observation deck of Earth's new galactic embassy buzzed with activity. Representatives from across the galaxy had gathered to witness something unprecedented. The graduation of the first mixed species class from the Earth Institute of Innovation. Ambassador Sarah Chen, formerly Admiral, watched the proceedings with quiet satisfaction. The defeat of the swarm had been spectacular, yes. Human quantum weaponry had torn through their bioorganic ships like paper. But this, she thought, was the real victory. Remarkable, said Archivist Trellmox, now Earth's primary liaison to the Galactic Council. A Regelian student just proposed a fusion of human quantum mechanics with traditional council biotechnology. The implications are staggering. That's what happens when you stop trying to make everyone think the same way, Chen replied. Innovation through diversity. It's what saved us during the quarantine years. Below them, a young Meridian was presenting her thesis on human-inspired improvements to space station design. Her bioluminescent patches pulsed with excitement as she explained how Earth's reckless approach to artificial gravity had revolutionized her understanding of spatial dynamics. The Council was wrong about us, Chen continued, but not in the way everyone thinks. They weren't wrong to fear our potential for violence. They were wrong to think that's all we were. The presentation hall erupted in applause as a human Centaurian research team demonstrated their new hybrid propulsion system. It combined human theoretical physics with Centaurian organic engineering in ways that defied conventional wisdom. We're getting reports from across the galaxy, Trellmox noted, checking his datapad. Worlds that adopt human educational methods are seeing unprecedented breakthroughs. Your species' habit of questioning everything, of refusing to accept impossible as an answer, it's infectious. Chen smiled. We learned during the quarantine that the most dangerous phrase in any language is, "That's how it's always been done." When you're isolated, when you can't rely on established solutions, you have to think differently. The ceremony continued below, each presentation more groundbreaking than the last. A Zaxthi scientist had incorporated human psychology into artificial intelligence design. A team from the former swarm frontier had developed new defensive systems by combining multiple species approaches to spatial manipulation. The swarm was just the beginning, Chen said quietly. The galaxy faces threats it doesn't even recognize yet. Climate collapse on thousand-world scales, cultural stagnation, technological plateaus. We didn't just develop weapons during our isolation. We developed new ways of solving problems. Trellmox's auxiliary legs shifted thoughtfully. The Council fears that humanity is becoming too influential too quickly. Some members worry about cultural contamination. They should, Chen replied. But not because we're forcing our way of thinking on anyone. We're simply showing them that there are other ways to think. The main doors opened, admitting a stream of merchant representatives. Vexstar, now the head of the largest independent trading coalition in the galaxy, led the group. His success in trading human innovations had made him legendary. The latest figures are in, he announced, his inner membranes flickering with excitement. Worlds that have adopted human-style free market principles, alongside traditional council economic structures, are showing growth rates triple the galactic average. Because we're not replacing their systems, Chen explained. We're adding to them. Humanity's gift to the galaxy isn't our technology. It's our perspective. The ceremony below was concluding. The graduates, representing over 50 species, stood together as equals. Each had learned not just human sciences and methods, but the human habit of questioning, of pushing boundaries, of asking, why not? There are still those who say we should never have been contacted. Trollmox observed that the galaxy was safer when humanity was contained. The galaxy was never safer, Chen corrected. It was just more comfortable. Comfort breeds complacency. Complacency breeds vulnerability. The swarm proved that. She gestured to the graduates below. Look at them. They're not becoming more human. They're becoming more themselves. They're learning to combine their own species' wisdom with new perspectives. That's how you build a civilization that can face any challenge. The observation deck began to fill with diplomats and leaders from across known space. The graduation ceremony was just the prelude. Today, Earth would formally present its proposal for the Galactic Defense Initiative, a new approach to protecting civilization that incorporated perspectives from all species. We're not going to be the galaxy's protectors, Chen said, addressing the gathering crowd. We're going to teach the galaxy to protect itself. Every species has something unique to offer. Humanity's gift was learning to survive in isolation. Now we can help others learn from our experience. As she prepared to give her formal address, Chen reflected on the irony. The Council had tried to contain humanity to protect galactic civilization. Instead, they had created exactly what galactic civilization needed. A species that had learned to think beyond limitations, beyond conventions, beyond the comfortable boundaries of established knowledge. The quarantine was over. The age of isolation had ended, but its lessons would serve the galaxy for millennia to come. The future, Chen announced to the assembled representatives of 1,000 worlds, isn't human. It's not council. It's not any single species or system. The future belongs to those who are brave enough to question, to innovate, to think differently. She paused, looking out at the faces of so many different species, all united in purpose. The Council tried to make Earth a warning to the galaxy. Instead, we became its greatest teacher, and the lesson is simple. There are no limits except those we accept. There are no boundaries except those we choose not to cross. And there is no force in the universe more powerful than beings who refuse to accept that something is impossible. The applause that followed wasn't just for her words. It was for a new age of galactic civilization, one where diversity wasn't just tolerated, but celebrated as the source of true strength. The quarantine had failed. But in failing, it had succeeded beyond anyone's wildest dreams.